Thank you for joining me as we look at our instructional worksheet 9-1. And this is about potential and kinetic energy. Potential energy is the energy that is due to position. And what does position mean? An object gets potential energy from its height, its mass, and gravity. In a few moments, we'll be talking about this chemical equation, which is height, mass, and G is gravity. And that will give us potential energy. Later today, we'll practice working these problems. So if I have something sitting on a hill, it has the potential to move to the bottom of that hill. The potential to do work is only released if the object falls. So if I have a book sitting on a table, that book has potential energy that's related to its height, to its mass, and here on Earth, the potential that's due to gravity. You know that that's 9.8 meters per second squared. Remember that Dr. Murray or Mr. Murray always lets us use 10 meters per second squared. The energy is transformed into energy of motion, and we'll talk about those transformations more another day. Let's look at these two diagrams. First, we'll look at this diagram. I'll switch colors so we know what we're doing here. More mass, a heavier object. If I have two objects, both 5 meters above the ground, and one has a mass of 10 kilograms and one has a mass of 20 kilograms, the object that has more potential energy will be my object with the greater mass. If I have two objects of the same mass, more height. If one object is 5 meters above ground and other is 3 meters above the ground, my object with greater height will have more potential energy. Here is an example of a problem. I want you to look and see that this is a 4-variable problem. So it's difficult to make a triangle for this. But I'm going to try in a moment for something that might be useful. There's a little blurb right here that says potential energy helps us generate electricity in hydroelectric dams. Water falls, turning a turbine. And if it falls from a greater height, it'll fall with greater force, and it turns the energy, its potential energy, into kinetic energy, or electrical energy. I'm going to switch back to this, and I'm going to write a very weird triangle. You can try this triangle if you want. Our potential energy can be equal on the bottom to mass, G, and H. And I will try, I might have to do this in another spot, to do some calculations with that in a few minutes. But here's our information on potential energy. Now I need to try to move down here to kinetic energy. Kinetic energy is energy of motion. An object gets kinetic energy from its mass and its velocity. An object with kinetic energy has energy that's tied up or stored with its motion. When an object slows down, the energy is turned into potential energy or something else. It could be like the heat energy in brakes of a car, friction using up energy. Here is my equation. We'll talk more about this in a few minutes. Potential energy is equal to 1/2 mass, and over here we said mass was a contributing factor, times, and don't forget, this is velocity squared. So velocity. So you will need a calculator on this one. So kinetic energy equals 1/2 times the mass times velocity squared. Here's a sample problem for solving for kinetic energy. Let's look at these two diagrams. An object with more mass going at the same speeds, notice that each of these objects is moving at a velocity or speed of 10 meters per second. The 20 kilogram, the more massive object, will have more kinetic energy. Let's say our speeds are varying and our masses are held constant. The object with the greater velocity will have the greater velocity will have more kinetic energy. Kinetic energy is what helps us bike up a hill. When you come down a hill, you start going up, and the faster you get going, the easier it'll be to get up the next hill. We used to have some great roller coaster things. I've got one. I think I've still got one, and I think we're going to do a roller coaster activity next week. But this has a lot to do with how this is what the deal is on roller coasters. Okay, just to make this a little easier to upload, I'm going to stop this and then I'm going to restart to do the problems.